Good evening, I'm Maham Tawa with the news-making headlines around the world. His Highness the Emir chairs a meeting of Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science. His Highness the Emir receives chairman and members of the Higher Consultative Committee for completing implementation of the Islamic Sharia. The Council of Ministers review in its weekly session measures and acts taken by the government agencies in facing acts of rioting and violence. And Israel sharpened its campaign against Gaza. In our first item, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah chaired at Sif Palace today a meeting of Kuwait Foundation for Advancement of Science. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah received at Sif Palace today the Governor of the Central Bank of Kuwait, Dr. Mohammed Yusuf Al-Hashil. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah received at Sif Palace today Chairman of the Higher Consultative Committee assigned to act for completing implementation on the Islamic Sharia law, Dr. Khalid Madkour Al-Madkour, and members of the committee who presented to him a book on Islamic theology and other publications by the committee. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah received at noon today at Sif Palace Mr. Fahd Abd Al-Rahman Al-Majil, Mr. Abdul Aziz Ahmed Al-Ghannam, and Mr. Abd Al-Rahman Khalid Al-Ghanem. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency President François Hollande of the Republic of France on his country's National Day. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency President François Hollande of the Republic of France on his country's National Day. And His Highness Sheikh Jabir Al-Mubarak Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah received at Sif Palace today the Governor of the Central Bank of Kuwait, Dr. Mohammed Yusuf Al-Hashil. His Highness the Crown Prince also received at Sif Palace today the Chairman of the Higher Consultative Committee for completing implementation of the Islamic Sharia, Dr. Khalid Madkour Al-Madkour, and the committee members Consul Abdullah Omar Al-Aisa, Rashid Fahd Al-Hamad, Kazim Mohammed Al-Mazidi, Dr. Abdul Mahsen Abdullah Al-Jaral Al-Khrafi, Mr. Faisal Abdul Aziz Al-Zamil, and Dr. Isam Abdul Latif Al-Flej. His Highness commended the efforts being made by the committee to complete implementation of the Islamic Sharia according to the moderation lines of the Islamic faith. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah received at Sif Palace today His Excellency Ambassador of the United Kingdom of Britain and Northern Ireland to the State of Kuwait, Frank Baker, on the end of his tenure in the country. His Highness the Crown Prince also received at Sif Palace today His Excellency Ambassador of the Kingdom of Spain to the State of Kuwait, Angel Losada Fernandez, on the end of his tenure in the country. The two meetings were attended by His Excellency Head of His Highness the Crown Prince Diwan Sheikh Mbarak Al Faisal Al Saud Al Subah and His Excellency the Under Secretary for Protocols and Ceremonies Sheikh Mbarak Subah Al Salim Lahmoud Al Subah. His Highness the Crown Prince also received at Sif Palace today the former president of Al-Azhar University and member of the senior scholars body in the university, Professor Dr. Ahmed Omar Hashim, on the occasion of his visit to the country. His Highness the Crown Prince praised Dr. Hashim's contributions and his positive stance in the preaching and religious field and wished the Republic of Egypt all progress and prosperity with everlasting peace and stability. Dr. Hashim, for his part, praised the leading role being exercised by the State of Kuwait in the charitable and humanitarian areas, as well as its regional and international stands. He also thanked Kuwait's humanitarian contributions to the Egyptian people. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Head of His Highness the Crown Prince Diwan Sheikh Mbarak Al Faisal Al Saud Al Subah and His Excellency the Under Secretary for Protocols and Ceremonies Sheikh Mbarak Subah Al Salim Lahmoud Al Subah. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Subah received at his diwan in Sif Palace today Priest Bigol Al Amba Bishoy, head of the Egyptian Coptic Cathedral in Kuwait. His Highness commended in the meeting the spirit of tolerance, peace and bringing closer followers of all religions. For his part, head of the Egyptian Cathedral praised the existing fraternal relations between Egypt and Kuwait and hailed the efforts being made by the State of Kuwait to consolidate international peace and stability. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Head of His Highness the Crown Prince Diwan Sheikh Mbarak Al Faisal Al Saud Al Subah and His Excellency the Under Secretary for Protocols and Ceremonies Sheikh Mbarak Subah Al Salim Lahmoud Al Subah. The National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem said in yesterday's meeting between the legislative and executive authorities, it was fruitful and positive. Speaking to the press, he pointed out that the First Deputy Premier and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Subah Khalid Al Hamad Al Subah, briefed the meeting, which was attended by 39 House members and 7 ministers, about the external situation and the latest developments and threats to Kuwait. The Deputy Premier, Minister of Interior and Acting Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs, Sheikh Mohammed Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Subah, also briefed the meeting on the internal situation and the latest developments related to it. The Council of Ministers convened in a weekly session at Sif Palace today under the chairmanship of His Highness Sheikh Jabal Mbarak Al Hamad Al Subah, the Prime Minister. The Minister of State for Cabinet Affairs and Acting Minister of Justice Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah Al Mbarak Al Subah said in his briefing after the meeting that the Council of Ministers reviewed the measures taken by the various government ministries and other agencies to face the acts of rioting, violence and irresponsible practices which the country had lately witnessed, such as closing roads and traffic blocking, beside attacks on security men damaging public and private properties and law breaking. He added that the Council of Ministers also reviewed in full seriousness and appreciation the directives of His Highness the Emir to counter any act or behavior designed to disrupt the country's security and stability of the country or damage the institutions without any lenience or tolerance, in order to uproot those strange phenomena which contradict our religion and the values of Kuwait society. Those acts are clear defiance to the authority of the state, especially at this critical time in the region. The Council of Ministers praised the positive role and sincere efforts being made by the security men in the Ministry of Interior, headed by the Deputy Premier, Minister of Interior and Acting Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs, Sheikh Mohammed Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Subah, and called on them to continue their performance. The Minister of State for Cabinet Affairs and Acting Minister of Justice went on to say that as the Council of Ministers realize their duties and responsibilities, which require firm confrontation with every act that may hamper the structure and constitution of the state or compromise the peace and stability, has asked each ministry to take necessary measures to implement the directives of His Highness the Emir and fulfill their goals in the manner that consolidate peace, security and stability in Kuwait, including the following measures. 1. The concerned agencies should be very firm in the enforcement of law and have to take whatever measures needed to consolidate peace and security in the country, beside imposing the ultimate authority of the state and facing any manifestations against this legality. 2. Asking the Ministry of Interior to take necessary measures to make sure that the requirements of citizenship and national belongings are respected in accordance to the Kuwait Nationality Law number 15 for the year 1959, both in spirit and content, particularly those acts which intend to disrupt peace and stability in the country. 3. Asking the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labour to confront any manifestation intended to violate the goals set by the law of the non-profit societies and which may exceed their designed role and authority. 4. Asking the audiovisual media to exercise their duties in raising public awareness and denouncing all aspects of chaos, riot and instigation. Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah Al-Mubarak Al-Subah went on to say that Council of Ministers expressed full confidence in the Kuwaiti people's ability to demonstrate their national unity and stand in one line against any threat to the peace and stability of their country. He concluded that the Council of Ministers also discussed the political issues and followed with deep concern the continued air raids of the Israeli aggression on Gaza Strip, which left many children, women and elderly people killed or wounded. He went on to say that as the Council of Ministers strongly denounces and condemns those criminal acts against the Palestinian people, it calls on the international community to shoulder its humanitarian responsibility and apply pressure on Israel to stop this aggression. Speaker of the National Assembly Marzouk Ali Al-Ghanem called for an emergency meeting between members of the Parliament and the government to discuss the latest local and regional political developments. The meeting was attended by the First Deputy Premier and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Premier and Minister of Interior, Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence, Minister of Information and Minister of State for Youth Affairs, Minister of State for Cabinet Affairs and Minister of Oil, and Minister of State for National Assembly Affairs, in addition to members of the Assembly Bureau and all MPs. Sarah Faris Globe has more from the National Assembly building.
Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al-Ghanem convened an emergency parliamentary meeting between members of the state's legislative and executive authorities to discuss the latest internal and external developments.
Today been invited the Member of Parliament by our Speaker and invited members of the government, the Deputy Prime Minister of Interior, the First Deputy Prime Minister of the Foreign Ministry, as well for the Defence and the Information Minister, as well the Health Minister and the Logistics Minister, and they present the latest situation concerning the regional development and what's happening in Iraq, as well the resolution from United Nations and the action which the government is planning to do. As well, the Interior Minister represent the domestic situation and the action has been taken concerning it, and confirm the stability of the situation, and also inform all the members of the parliaments and been asked for several questions which been answered, and most of the members of parliament, they feel the government is taking the proper action concerning the latest development.
The session comes ahead of an Arab League emergency ministerial meeting in response to a request by the State of Kuwait to discuss the Gaza crisis in Cairo, and an emergency meeting of the Arab Interparliamentary Union headed by Speaker Al-Ghanem, also chairman of the union, to discuss the recent Israeli aggression on Gaza.
Yes, they will discuss the Gaza issues, and also the Kuwait is playing a major role in this one, to discuss it, and also to to have a high voice to protect our people in Palestine, and I believe that we have the responsibility to do so. Today we had the meeting because to discuss major issues around us, regional issues and also local issues, and because of that we had this meeting, and after that probably there is nobody is going to be here within the end of Ramadan, the ministers and also the members of the Assembly. So we discussed what we can discuss today. That's it.
The meeting came after Speaker Al Ghanim and about 16 MPs met with His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah earlier to discuss the domestic situation, and with the required signatures of 33 lawmakers to convene the emergency session, MPs were recalled only a week into their summer recess. Following an invitation from the National Assembly Speaker, the country's legislative and executive branches held this emergency meeting to discuss the local and regional developments, particularly in Syria, Iraq and the Gaza Strip, in light of the recent regional instability and ahead of two important high-level regional meetings. From the National Assembly building, this is Sarah Glubb reporting for English News.
Israel toughened its military offensive against Gaza, warning Palestinians in the north to flee, while diplomatic efforts to halt the bloodshed intensified with no clear ceasefire in sight. More with Majd Al-Wahidi from Gaza.
Gaza. The only sound is grief or a grieving silence. Images are only killed people, too graphic to show, and the smell is fire after some Israeli bombs were exploded somewhere. As a sign of further escalation, Israeli forces dispersed leaflets urging residents in the northern Gaza to stay away from Hamas sites that could be targeted. Thousands of displaced civilians sought refuge in UNRWA schools.
Anyone over the age of 6 has been through this 3 times. That's an unbelievable and very negative statistic that people have gone through what we're going through now 3 times over. And many of them have been displaced and ended up in shelters like UNRWA's 3 times. We have to put an end to this.
We asked UNRWA to help us until Israeli airstrikes stop and the fighters reach a truce. We want to go back to our homes. We cannot stay in these schools. For a 7th day, Israeli warplanes continue to bombard homes, hospitals, abandoned military bases, and agricultural areas in the besieged enclave. Israel says it targets only militants who fire rockets into Israeli cities. The army uses phone calls and drops empty shells on roofs to warn civilians that airstrikes are imminent. But some brutal acts against civilians are still unjustified. This girl was submitted to intensive care unit since yesterday. She is suffering from head injuries with deep burns. She's a survivor of a deadly airstrike on a care home for Palestinians with special needs. 2 other women were not so lucky, as their bodies were torn to bits after an Israeli bomb hit the building. And the director of the place said that no prior Israeli warning was given to them. As world powers prepare to discuss the continued bloodshed, Palestinian death toll from a punishing Israeli air campaign hit 170 with more than 1,000 wounded. More than 500 houses and mosques were also destroyed. The whole population suffers from mental health problems. And for Hamas and Islamic Jihad, the battle with Israel is wide open. They will keep firing rockets into Israeli cities.
When I say Hamas has nothing to lose, I mean by that Hamas is no longer in the government. And second, Hamas has been affected really badly after the closure and the destructions of the tunnels running between Gaza and Sinai, which were the lifeline for Hamas and the Palestinians in Gaza. Therefore, Hamas was pushed into the corner, and it was also politically isolated. Therefore, in order to get out of this complicated political and economic situation, Hamas was interested into this war to try to get out of its internal problems.
Amid international efforts to mediate a truce, neither Hamas nor Israel has showed any interest in accepting a ceasefire. Under Israeli siege and constant fears of death, Gaza's 1.8 million residents say the so-called Operation Protective Edge is the worst nightmare that has ever happened to them and their children. Majd Al-Wahidi, Kuwait TV, Gaza.
And still on the Palestinian situation, the Palestinian foreign minister called today for an immediate ceasefire as the Israeli offensive on Gaza continued for a 7th day and the Palestinian death toll rose to at least 172. Riyad al-Malki held talks with Arab League Chief Nabil al-Arabi in Cairo ahead of an emergency Arab League foreign ministers meeting to discuss the conflict as well as measures to urge the international community to pressure Israel. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas requested the meeting, which was approved by several Arab foreign ministers. Israel began its campaign against Hamas-controlled Gaza last Tuesday, saying it was responding to heavy rocket fire from the densely populated territory. The Israeli military says it has launched more than 1,300 airstrikes since then, while Palestinian activists have launched nearly 1,000 rockets at Israel. There have been no Israeli deaths as a result of Hamas rocket launches, though several people have been wounded, including a teenage boy who was seriously injured by rocket shrapnel. A car bomb killed at least 4 people in a commercial area of central Baghdad today. The explosion took place in Baghdad's Alawi neighborhood near the Green Zone that is home to many government offices and foreign embassies. At least 12 civilians were wounded in the blast. Baghdad has seen several small-scale bombings, but no major attacks since militants launched an offensive last month that has since overrun much of northern and western Iraq. And in our final item tonight, the International Federation for American Football, IFAF, the U19 Championship, is nearing its end, with teams from around the globe competing for the top world rankings. Our reporter Badriya Saleh attended one of the final games played last night by Kuwait and France before tomorrow kicks off the semi-finals.
The U19 Championship is nearing its end as Kuwait and France battled it out yesterday to see who would get to face off with Japan tomorrow for 5th place in the tournament.
The guys have been giving their all. You know, it's the World Cup. It's not an Asian Cup or a Gulf Cup. It's just the World Cup, so it's the best of the best, and they're trying their best. We are happy and proud of our guys for doing what they're doing, and especially since the level of the players have been going up from game to game. So in Canada we were at our lowest point, and against Austria we played better. Against France we're playing our best right now. We're trying our best to at least put points on the board in the World Cup. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you know, this is the World Cup. Brazil just lost to Germany 7-1, which nobody would imagine for Brazil. And Brazil is an old veteran team, but Kuwait is the first time it's ever played, especially the U19 team, just first time it's ever played a tournament, and the tournament was the World Cup because we were hosting it.
By halftime, France was ahead 48-0, but home team Kuwait kept their spirits high, anticipating tomorrow's chance to beat their own current ranking.
The importance of this tournament itself is not the scores on the board, it's the level of play, and so the guys actually know what's out there, because now we're like frogs in a pond. We only know what we are. We don't know what the monsters are out there, and really there are monsters compared to us, but when a Kuwaiti gets something to his head, hopefully we can get the drive to push for more and greater things. So right now, hopefully we can come back as much as we can from this huge deficit. And if this game finishes, we still have the German game to try and get out of the 8th spot and get into the 7th place, which is going to be huge for Kuwait, because now we're ranked 8th in the World Cup. We get 7th, and we're 7th on the world. And so that's the plan.
Tomorrow's games will see Kuwait and Germany go head-to-head for 7th place, with Japan and France will go against each other for 5th. Leaving Wednesday's games to see Austria and Mexico battle it out for bronze, while Canada and the U.S. go for gold. At Al Nasser Stadium, I'm Badriya Saleh, reporting for the English News.
For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. Well, with that, we conclude our news bulletin. Thank you for joining us. Have a pleasant time. I'm Maham Tawa. Before we go, we remind you once again of our main top stories. Have a pleasant time and good night. His Highness the Emir chairs a meeting of Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science. His Highness the Emir receives chairman and members of the Higher Consultative Committee for completing implementation of the Islamic Sharia. The Council of Ministers review in its weekly session measures and acts taken by the government agencies in facing acts of rioting and violence. And Israel sharpened its campaign against Gaza.